I came home early, 'cause the damn faucet in the kitchen was leaking like it was crying over my life choices. The constant dripping had been driving me insane for weeks, a Chinese water torture in my own home. Drip. 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 Like a metronome counting down to disaster. My wife, Sarah, said she called a plumber. He's a friend of the neighbors, she said with that little smile that should have been my first warning. He's doing us a favor. Right. A favor. That word tastes like acid now. The drive home was brutal. Middle of the day, sweating through my button-down after the air conditioning in my 10-year-old Camry finally gave up the ghost. Just like my marriage, apparently. The universe has a sick sense of humor that way. I wasn't supposed to be home until 6. Sarah knew that. She'd memorized my schedule better than I had, all the better to plan around it. But Donovan, my boss, had looked at me with something like pity when I mentioned the leaky faucet during lunch. "Go home, man," he said, clapping my shoulder. "Take care of your house. We're good here." If I ever see Donovan again, I'll have to thank him for accidentally destroying and saving my life in the same breath. I pulled into the driveway at 2:17 p.m. I remember checking the dashboard clock, thinking I'd have time to change into something more comfortable before the plumber showed up. Sarah's car was in the driveway. So was a beat-up white van with Peterson Plumbing stenciled on the side in flaking blue paint. No phone number. No license information. Just a name and a cartoon wrench that looked like it was drawn by a 5th grader. The front door was unlocked. Not unusual in our neighborhood, but Sarah was paranoid about that kind of thing. Another red flag I ignored. I stepped inside, the familiar smell of home hitting me, Sarah's lavender candles, the coffee I'd made that morning, and something else. Something musky and wrong that didn't belong. Then I heard it. Not wrenching. Not clanking. Not a single damn drop of water being fixed. Just low, wet, shameless moaning. My body went cold, then hot, then numb. You know that feeling when you're dreaming and suddenly you're falling? That stomach-dropping, time-slowing sensation. It was like that, except I was wide awake, and instead of hitting the ground, I kept falling. I should have yelled. Should have announced myself. Should have given some warning. But something primitive took over, some animal instinct to see the danger with my own eyes. I crept toward the hallway, my leather shoes suddenly silent on the hardwood floors. The moaning got louder. A man's voice I didn't recognize grunted something unintelligible. Sarah's laugh, that little breathy giggle she does when she's turned on, echoed off the kitchen tiles. Our kitchen. The one I'd spent 3 weekends renovating last summer. The one with the farmhouse sink Sarah had fallen in love with in some home magazine. The one where we'd had countless dinners, countless conversations, countless moments I thought meant something. And there they were, in my kitchen. Sarah was bent over the sink, clothes disheveled, and he was behind her, a stocky guy with a patchy beard and a Peterson Plumbing cap still on his head. His tool belt was half undone, hanging off his waist. He had an actual wrench in one hand, which would have been comical if it wasn't so pathetic. They were so caught up they didn't notice me standing there, watching the destruction of my marriage in real time. 10 years together, reduced to grunts and giggles in my kitchen on a Tuesday afternoon. I stood frozen for 2 seconds. 2 seconds that stretched into eternity. In those seconds, I saw everything, our wedding day, the house we bought together, the fights we'd had and made up from, the future we'd planned, all of it shattered on my kitchen floor like a dropped glass. Then I grabbed the nearest thing I could find, another wrench from his toolbox sitting open on my counter. The weight of it in my hand felt good. Solid. Real. I stormed in. The floor creaked under my step, and they both jumped like they'd been electrocuted. He scrambled backwards so fast he smacked his head on the cabinet with a satisfying thunk. Blood rushed to his face as he fumbled with his clothing. "It's not what it looks like," he squealed, backing away from me with his hands up like I was pointing a gun instead of a wrench. The oldest line in the book. Not what it looks like. As if there was any other explanation for what I'd just witnessed. Sarah's face went from flushed pleasure to stark horror in the span of a heartbeat. Her eyes darted between me and him, calculating, always calculating. I could see her mind racing, trying to find the right words, the right lie to make this all go away. "Jake, I can explain," she started, her voice shaking. "Don't," I cut her off. The sound of my own voice surprised me, calm, almost conversational. "Don't insult me more than you already have." I looked at her, flushed, sweaty, caught in the act, and all I said was, "Fix that leak." I pointed to the faucet that had been dripping for weeks, the one she'd supposedly called this fraud to fix. The so-called plumber was backing toward the door, trying to gather his scattered tools without taking his eyes off me and the wrench in my hand. "Get out," I said to him, still in that eerily calm voice. "Before I decide to see how hard I can swing this." He didn't need to be told twice. He scrambled out, leaving half his tools behind, his fake plumber belt still unfastened. I followed him to the door, watching as he practically fell into his van and peeled out of my driveway, tires squealing. When I turned around, Sarah was standing in the hallway, clothes hastily rearranged, tears already streaming down her face. The tears were always her first defense. "Jake, please, it was a mistake. A stupid, one-time mistake." I laughed. I couldn't help it. A sharp, bitter sound that cut through her performance. "One time? You expect me to believe that? The way you two were going at it in there? The comfortable way you let him into our home?" I shook my head. "How long, Sarah?" She looked down, picking at her fingernails the way she always did when she was lying. "It doesn't matter. It didn't mean anything. It was just." "How long?" She flinched. 3 months. 3 months. 12 weeks. 84 days of lying to my face, sleeping beside me, acting like everything was normal while she was screwing some fake plumber behind my back. "Get out," I said, the calmness finally cracking. "Pack a bag and get out." "This is my house too," she tried, defiance flaring up through the tears. "Really? Because my name's the only one on the mortgage. The mortgage I've been paying while you find yourself with your art classes and your yoga retreats." I stepped closer. "The art classes and yoga retreats where you apparently found time to screw around with the neighborhood handyman." Her face hardened. The tears dried up instantly, replaced by a cold fury I'd seen glimpses of over the years but never directed so fully at me. "Fine," she spat. "But this isn't over. We need to talk about this like adults." "Sure," I nodded. "Call my lawyer. He's an adult. You can talk to him." I watched her storm upstairs, listened to drawers slamming and closet doors banging. I didn't follow. Instead, I went back to the kitchen, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and sat down at the counter, staring at the still dripping faucet. Drip. 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 When she came back downstairs 20 minutes later, dragging a suitcase and with her eyes puffy from crying, I didn't look up. "I'll be at Melissa's," she said from the doorway. "When you calm down and want to discuss this rationally." "Tossing you out isn't enough," I interrupted, still staring at the faucet. "I'm going to ruin you both." She laughed, actually laughed, like I was being melodramatic. "Good luck with that," she said, and slammed the door behind her. But she didn't know me. Not really. Not the me that existed before her, the one who grew up fighting for every scrap, the one who learned early that the world doesn't play fair, so neither should you. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't cry. I didn't call friends to vent or family to console me. Instead, I started digging. Peterson Plumbing. No website. No registration with the Better Business Bureau. I called the city clerk's office the next morning and confirmed what I already suspected. no business license on file for any Peterson Plumbing. I found him on Facebook easily enough. Mark Peterson. 36. Divorced. Posts mainly consisted of beer, fishing trips, and the occasional vague inspirational quote that cheaters and liars love to hide behind. Everything happens for a reason. Trust the journey. That kind of garbage. I dug deeper. Court records are public, after all. His divorce wasn't pretty. Infidelity, was cited. Child support payments consistently late. A restraining order filed by his ex-wife then later dropped. And then there were the reviews. Not for his business, which didn't exist, but comments on community pages where women, always women, praised his fast response and reasonable rates. The thinly veiled innuendo was sickening. I traced his history through social media, finding a pattern of him working for married women when their husbands were away. The van was just a prop. The tools just for show. He was running a service all right, but it had nothing to do with fixing leaks, at least not the kind in pipes. It took me 3 days to compile everything. 3 days of meticulous research, screenshots, records. 3 days where Sarah called and texted incessantly, her messages evolving from tearful apologies to angry demands to threats about lawyers and community property. I didn't respond to any of them. On the 4th day, I put my plan into action. First, I filed anonymous complaints with the state licensing board for contractors, fraud, misrepresentation, operating without a license. I attached photos of his van with the fake business name, screenshots of women recommending his services in neighborhood groups. Next, I created a simple website, petersonplumbingfraud.com. On it, I posted every piece of evidence I'd gathered, careful to include only facts that could be verified through public records. His history of infidelity. His missed child support payments. His pattern of targeting married women. No embellishment needed, the truth was damning enough. Then I posted his name and face to every neighborhood group and community forum within a 50-mile radius with a warning: this man enters homes for the wrong kind of pipe work. Unlicensed. Unethical. Unsafe. I paid for targeted ads on social media, making sure they reached everyone in our extended social circle. The beauty of the internet age, revenge at the speed of light, with the precision of a surgical strike. Within days, the fallout began. His van got spray-painted with the word "cheat" in big red letters, not by me, though I can't say I was sorry to see it. He lost what few legitimate handyman jobs he had. Women who had used his services scrambled to delete their recommendations, but screenshots are forever. The state licensing board opened an investigation. The IRS got an anonymous tip about unreported income. His ex-wife's lawyer received a detailed packet about his new business ventures and renewed her petition for increased child support. And Sarah? I boxed her crap, everything she hadn't taken in her hasty exit, and left it at her sister Melissa's with a note: maybe she needs something fixed. Melissa, who had never liked me anyway, called screaming about how I was a psychopath and how Sarah was broken over what I'd done. I let her rant until she ran out of steam. "Are you finished?" I asked when she finally paused for breath. "You're pathetic," she hissed. "Destroying a man's business over one mistake." His business was screwing married women, Melissa. And it wasn't one mistake. It was 3 months of mistakes, in my house, in my bed, all while Sarah looked me in the eye and lied. "She's filing for divorce," Melissa said, like it was some kind of threat. "Good," I replied. "Tell her lawyer to call my lawyer." "And Melissa? Might want to check if your husband has used Peterson Plumbing. He seems to have been popular in the neighborhood." I hung up while she was still sputtering denials. The divorce proceedings were ugly, as expected. Sarah tried to claim emotional abuse, tried to paint herself as the victim of a controlling husband who drove her to seek comfort elsewhere. But her lawyer's face when mine presented evidence of her 3-month affair, including text messages I'd recovered from our shared cloud account, was worth every penny of my legal fees. In the end, she got less than she wanted and more than she deserved. I kept the house. She kept her car and some savings. We divided the rest and went our separate ways. Last I heard, she had moved in with Peterson. That didn't last long. Turns out, when he's not in costume, sneaking around with the thrill of forbidden fruit, he's broke, boring, and apparently not much of a catch. Without the excitement of cheating, their connection fizzled faster than a cheap sparkler. She tried to come back once. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, she showed up on my doorstep, looking thinner and older, with apologies and promises spilling from her lips. I listened silently until she ran out of words. "Are you finished?" I asked, echoing my question to her sister. "Jake, please. We had 10 years together. That has to mean something." "It did," I nodded. "It meant everything to me. That's why I'll never forgive what you did." I closed the door on her tears and went back to my quiet house, my peaceful life. As for the faucet that started it all, I fixed it myself. Turned out it just needed a new washer and some tightening. Simple. Straightforward. Honest. And every time I hear it working properly, I smile, 'cause that's the sound of revenge echoing through clean, quiet pipes. The sound of a life rebuilt, stronger and better than before, without the rot of betrayal weakening its foundation. Some leaks can't be fixed. Some damage can't be repaired. But the ones that can, those are the ones worth fighting for. Just not with Peterson Plumbing. They've gone out of business.